so that we can record this and I can upload it later. So that, all right, so that you can look at it now or you can look at it later. And for those of you who are unable to be here right now, you can look at it later as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this stuff first, which is just some logistical things, some last minute reminders, things you probably know, but I think are worth going over. That, it's really important to eat before the exam. That means tonight and tomorrow. Not to be a nag, but you should have protein so you're not hungry and so your brain works well. Um, the research says that you should study in chunks, so that you should maybe focus on, you know, Greek art for a while, immerse yourself in that, and then take a little break, do something else, and just do it in chunks like that, so they kind of, you see images that relate to each other. And then finally, do not stay up all night studying. Sleep. Tomorrow morning, eat a good breakfast. If you can, listen to some screencasts or podcasts just to kind of get your brain to shift into art history mode, getting used to the vocabulary, things like that. But it's not a big deal if you can't. Make sure you have all the supplies you need so you're not rushing around minutes before the exam. Drink water. Have a snack. Seriously, do something to lower your adrenaline, especially if you feel like you've stayed up all night. When you receive the exam, look it over and make sure you understand the format. You don't want to get stuck partway through because you don't understand like how long a paragraph is supposed to be or how much time you're supposed to spend on it. So as much as you can, look it over so that you feel comfortable with the format. The most important thing with, I think this AP exam in particular, is do not flip out when you see art you've never seen before, because it's designed for there to be a lot of art on here that you will not have seen. What they want to do is see if you can identify the conventions that will lead you to know, because of the way the nimbus is shaped around this head, it must be from 14th century Italy, da 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 da. So, but that panic that you can get if you look at stuff and you don't know what it is can kind of affect the way you guess and your ability to see those clues. So know that that's part of the deal. You will not know every single image you see. Most of you have taken SAT prep, so this is not new. Move through the exam. Don't get obsessed about one particular question that you don't know, even if you're like, oh, it's at the tip of my tongue. Keep moving. Read through it and keep moving. If you have no clue, skip it and come back to it later. Especially on this exam, I think you will find information in other questions that will help you on previous questions. This just is for taking 2-minute brain breaks to think about something else. Review your work. Again, basic SAT prep. Your first gut choice is most likely the correct one. So really think hard before you change something. And if you can narrow it down at all, do so. And then after the exam, since I'll be quietly throwing up at a bathroom somewhere on campus, you should email me or somehow let me know that you survived and that it was fine. It'll be great. Sacred Heart Cathedral students, it's in room 103 on the first floor of the LaSalle campus, and you should be there at 11:30. Mr. Corkery will be looking for you. So again, 11:30 on the LaSalle campus at room 103. See? 103. Don't be late. And Sarah students, Rita assured me that you know where to go and what to do. Okay, so just a couple of things to remind you. Here in this webinar and other review materials are the webinars we've already done this year. So, they might be a good thing to go through if you like. The other thing that I think, super irritating. The other thing that would be good to look through are many of the screencasts that are here. And even if they're ones that you've already looked at, you've already seen, pick a few to go over. Again, it's better to be able to talk about maybe a dozen pieces of art really, really well than be able to name 100 of them and know them just a little bit. So, especially this stuff that we in general did not spend a whole lot of time on together. This is all in the more modern art. Those are really good screencasts I encourage you to look at. Okay, so that's what I was going to show you there. There was one more thing in here I thought maybe I had. Okay. Everything, all the slideshows and whatever that I show you this evening, I'm also going to post in Schoology. So, for instance, here's something. Hey, no problem. Is this? I thought this was something I had uploaded. Have you guys seen this? The expanded timeline thing? Oh, good. Michael even printed it out. He sleeps with it under his pillow so that he can absorb all the information. This, I think, is really good to go through. The expanded timelines, this shows a lot of the conventions of each of the eras. I think it's a good thing to go over. So that's uploaded on Schoology, but I'll make sure, maybe I'll also put it under review materials so it's kind of obvious where it is. And then, was there something? Nah, I think I'll just go straight for, I'll start here. Okay. Yay. Okay, so this is something that I believe I also uploaded, but I'll just go through again because I think it has a lot of the important themes and ideas that you're going to need to know. So some basic things about this. This is from the Renaissance. Can anybody, either in the flesh and blood or out there in GoToMeeting land, can you tell me any clues that would have let you know that this is from the Renaissance? Any clues? Like if there was a multiple choice and it was Reformation, Renaissance, Impressionism, and Modernism, how would you be able to narrow down what it could be?
Well, it doesn't look very modern, so you probably take that out.
Good. It doesn't look very modern, and modern art generally does not try and duplicate Renaissance art, so you could knock out modern. Anything else? Another clue?
It looks like a lot of like the Renaissance stuff that we've seen, like it's similar to.
Good. It's in what ways is it similar to other Renaissance work that we've looked at? There are a couple of different ways in which it's similar. Good. The foreshortening in the background is indicative of its being Renaissance, and the really kind of even sort of like it's really emphasized on that back sort of mountain, how foreshortened that is. Another thing I would say is the color scheme. That basic red and blue with the blue cape is almost always going to tell you that's Mary. The nimbus, that halo around her head, is indicative of its being Renaissance. And frankly, the other thing that indicates it to me is the sort of inability to draw a baby, that it just kind of looks like a shrunken adult. That, for whatever kind of warped reason, is part of what clues me into its being Renaissance. The other thing is sort of the emphasis on the drapery of the material. That is taken from the Greek sculptures and transferred then to the Renaissance. So those are some clues. Renaissance in general means rebirth. The height of it is in Italy. Order, symmetry, perspective, classical space movement. A lot of basis on the Greeks. This is from Mantegna, whose probably most famous piece is the Foreshortened Christ, which I think we'll look at in another slideshow, but it's the one of the dead Christ, and it's the view of like you're standing at the viewer standing at the feet of Christ looking at the body, and it's foreshortened. And so Mantegna really worked on the whole foreshortening thing. All right, can anybody identify this? Ryan, Saliba, anybody?
It's the School of Athens.
Thank you. It's the School of Athens. Yay! And it's an example of classicism. Classicism, anything that looks like it's Greek is probably classicism. The Renaissance artists, really focused on Greece and Rome. It's all about ratio, symmetry, proportion. They really approached it as a science. And again, the School of Athens, Raphael. This is, I think, in my 6 years of teaching this has been on every single exam. So again, the School of Athens, Raphael. Watch this be the 1 year it's not. But anyway, just saying. Can anybody tell me anything about this painting? Any guesses? What era it's from? What, maybe another painting that it looks like? Anybody? What could we rule out in terms of if they put a bunch of different eras up there? Classicism, Baroque. I mean, what is it not? Do you think? Good. It's not modern. Good. What else? It's not what?
Not classicism.
Good. It's not classicism. Is it Renaissance? I'll tell you why I don't think it's Renaissance is, for one thing, the expression on the smile. I think that one guy looks like a smiling cowboy who's kind of like in the middle, but to the right. In Renaissance, there's not a lot of expression in the faces. It's often just a lot of symmetry. So those are things that it's not. And again, that's what I want you to think of. If you're stuck, you're like, oh, I can't name it. Think of what it's not, and that will help you get some clues. Part of the reason that I think that it makes sense to me that it's Baroque is there is an emphasis on sort of sumptuousness. The colors are really rich. It's not that kind of, that's pretty basic red, pretty basic blue of the Renaissance, but this kind of rose color in that Cupid-like person's kind of blanket on him. The emphasis on movement, the emphasis on leisure. They're just hanging around. They're not battling anybody. They're not doing anything like that. And it's an advancement from Renaissance. There's more expression. The highlighting on the skin, I think, is an example of Baroque.
Is Baroque part of the Renaissance?
No, it's just beyond the Renaissance.
But classicism
is part of the Renaissance, yeah, yes. Movement, drama. Yeah, that's what I forgot. There's somehow drama involved. There's always emotion in Baroque, and this is the Triumph of Bacchus. Velázquez is probably the most famous, well, in my mind, the most famous Baroque artist. Yeah, that's Bacchus because he's got grapes coming out of his head. And that one guy looks like he has a margarita glass in his hand, but it's actually the sky. But I always think it looks like a margarita glass. But anyway, all right. What about this? Pastoral scene. What is it? What is a pastoral scene, first of all? If someone says, give me an example of a pastoral scene, what is a pastoral scene? Ryan or Saliba? Who could be looking things up and I don't know? Okay, so this is Rococo. A pastoral scene has to do with, for some reason I think of it as a pasture, but it's not really. But it's usually a scene of a group of people in a leisurely setting. Baroque and Rococo go together in that they're not usually showing moments of like war or anything like that, but there's an emphasis on leisure. You see there those little Cupid guys there. It's very decorative. The women have beautiful bright dresses. The men have fancy waistcoats. Rococo is like super, super fancy.
Is this like, do they use a lot of pastels?
Yes, lots of pastels. Lots of scenes in nature. I just think of it as super, super fancy, like Versailles, lots of ornamentation, lots of gold. Um, this is the Pilgrimage to Cythera, Antoine Watteau. Um, if you get a chance, there's another example of Watteau I'll show you in a little bit, but he really is the main Rococo artist. We'll see an example of a painting of his called L'Indifferent, and it's a portrait of one man. But again, Watteau is a real Rococo painter. All right, so can anybody tell me what this is or have a guess about what era this is from? Good. A lot of emphasis on muscle. Neoclassicism. Good. So you know that it has to do somehow with classicism, because they look like they're in Greek and Roman garb on some level. So that, sort of means classicism. Maybe it's Renaissance, but you've kind of narrowed it down to that. There's that basic red, basic blue colors, not too much variation. It's a rejection of Rococo, which again, Rococo is super frou-frou, super fancy. This is really about sort of more strict classical values, black and white meaning like there's war or there's love. They're not laying around in a pasture eating grapes like they do in Rococo or Baroque paintings. Again, neoclassicism, new classicism. This is Jacques-Louis David's Oath of Herati. This one I'm going to have to peek at. Aha, Romanticism. For me, Romanticism and Rococo are hard to distinguish. In general, Romanticism, I think, tends to be darker than Rococo and Baroque. Rococo and Baroque, you'll see like lots of golds and pinks and blues and things like that in a range of colors, and Romanticism tends to be a little bit darker. Rebellion, freedom, symbol, intuition, emotion. Yeah, Romanticism is hard for me. Maybe some of you can identify it better than I can, but it tends to be darker, both literally and figuratively. And I think that's where you get the rebellion and things like that. This is a very famous piece that has been on, I think, almost every one of the AP exams, either as an identifying multiple choice or use in an essay portion of the exam. Can anybody name this painting?
Is it realism?
It is realism. Good. It is realism. How do you know that it's realism? What are some clues that it's realism? Saliba, why do you think it's realism? Why was it, other than you knew that painting, presumably? What tells you that it's realism?
I've actually seen the painting before, so...
Yeah, I mean, it is...
Other than
Yeah.
that,
It is very...
Go
ahead.
like, exposing piece.
Good.
Isn't
Very
really,
good.
like, one section type thing. It's more
Good.
of a... shows you what's real. It's not, like, made up.
Good. Very good. And it includes what might have been sort of uncomfortable subjects. This, for instance, was supposed to be a prostitute. And she had a servant with her. She is very, not tauntingly, but she's kind of defying the viewer, try not to look at my naked body here. That's an indication of realism. Though her body is, sort of on some level idealized. It's not like she has, they're showing cellulite or anything. There's an emphasis on, what this woman really looks like in bed, the wrinkles in the sheets, the way her weight is on the pillow, things like that. Almost always in realism, because it's generally social critique, there's some sort of defiance element in it. So again, in this case, Manet's Olympia daring the viewer, not to look at her. All right, from realism, we move to Impressionism. Can anybody tell me what are some of the conventions of Impressionism? Like, how do you know something is impressionistic?
Plein air.
How can you tell something's impressionistic? I mean, if you... Yes, it's sort of abstract. It's really the suggestion of figures. I mean, if you look, for instance, there are no whites of the eyes. There are no clear lines. It's just an impression. It's like everything is smudged at the edges, and yet somehow it comes across as very vibrant.
It kind of has like thin brush stroke.
Yes, it has thin brush strokes. There's an emphasis on color and defining areas and people with the color and not necessarily with line, which is very present. A lot of emphasis on shadow. And this is Dans et le Moulin de la Galette, Renoir. Other famous impressionists, Monet. What? Oh, sorry.
No, I like it. It's really pretty.
It's not really pretty because I speak German, and so it actually all sounds really German. I say it with great gusto, so I make you think that's exactly how I pronounce it. But anyway, Monet, for instance, Gauguin. Who's the other one with the Starry Night?
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh, thank you. Chopped his ear off, that guy. Post-Impressionism. I think this is hard to identify as well. I haven't seen on the exam that they do a whole lot of differentiation between Impressionism and Post-Impressionism. I think they're pretty close in terms of look. I mean, it's still life. I really don't know how it communicates emotion. This is a little beyond me, So again, what I can tell you is on the exam that, like the options will be Impressionism and Modernism. It won't be Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, and Modernism. So hopefully that makes you feel better about that. This, I think, is pretty clearly modern. It's Cubist in nature in this one. Experimental, radical, ready-made, primitive. This is a carafe, jug and fruit bowl by Picasso. There's almost always lots of Picasso on the exam. Even if I've often seen on the exam that they don't put his most famous works, but they'll put something like this, which is a little less well known, but because of the cubism involved, if you're really not sure, but you think it's modern, I would go ahead and pick Picasso. Does anybody know the artist of this? Good, Andy Warhol. And this is postmodern. Groovy 1970s. This emphasis on lowbrow. Andy Warhol's Campbell's Soup. The classicists would have been appalled that he used Campbell's Soup as a symbol in his art. I also, the postmodernism, the thing that I think is really interesting is that much of it is temporary. So, you know, it's stuff that disintegrates. It's stuff that, you know, you swirl into the river and it goes away. So that's also something of post modernism. Yeah. Okay, so that's that one. Let's do another one. Okay, this one is a little bit out of order. Okay. Can anybody tell me anything about this? Like whether you've seen this ever or not. Like holy crap, you look at this, you don't have any idea. What are some basic things you can identify?
Looks like a tapestry.
Good. Looks like a tapestry. There's an emphasis on pattern. There are no human figures on it. There are animal figures on it. The color, the rich color, to me, indicates that it's the cover of a book. You know, that it's one of the Gospels. Why can't I think of the word for it? Like the Illuminations. So the Lindisfarne Gospels, we'll go through and look at these answers, but something like this is an Illumination manuscript. You know, it might be tempting to think it's some sort of tapestry, but the animal decorations on the edges are what indicate that it is an actual, like a manuscript. It's part of a book. It's an illumination. Okay, can anybody tell me what this building is?
Is it in Greek?
No.
Is that Athena's temple?
No. This is actually in Rome, but it is very Greek-like. Not that that helps, but.
Well, does Rome, that means like is it in the Vatican? It's holy?
No, but it's the Pantheon. Yeah, okay, so let's go through a few parts of the building. What is the triangle up front? What do we call that space that's in the triangle? On any Greek or Roman building. That's the Capitol is the top
And the
of.
two.
Go ahead. So see, this is what I do in my bed at home. Like I'm talking to you guys. I'm like, what?
What is
Okay, so for the so you people, Saliba and Ryan, I'm standing here by the by the screen, so you can't participate in this part. But what is this area right here? What's that? It's the triangle, and it's where a lot of the sculpture is. It's the pediment. Pediment. And so when we look at Greek sculpture, and particularly the Temple of Athena and the Parthenon, you'll remember that, you know, this is where a lot of the sculpture is in the pediment. And so you'll see the stooped over figures closer to the edge. So like Emma already said, at the top of every column is a capital. In this case, what kind of capital is it? Doric, Ionic, or Corinthian? No. So Doric is super plain because it's dorky. That's how I remember it. Doric is dorky, super plain. There's like no fancy stuff on it. Ionic is ironically the sheep horns. This is just the way I remember it, and it's totally lame, but it works. So they're the sheep horns. It's the curlicues. Corinthian is like curlicues. Okay, so if there's a lot of curlicues and fancy stuff on it, then it's Corinthian. Almost everything you'll see is either Ionic or Corinthian. Okay. Can anybody tell me anything about this?
there's like a contrast of like light and dark and like shadowing.
Good. A deep contrast of light and dark and shadowing, which means that it's not a painting, it's an
Sketch. Drawing.
engraving.
Engraving.
It's an engraving. And this is by here my German is useful, Albrecht Dürer. And so he is really the main person who does any deep engraving like this, Albrecht Dürer. And if you weren't sure, this is from the Reformation, 16th century Germany. He's got the A and the D down at the bottom of that screen. What is the subject matter of this engraving?
Looks like the Last
Yeah.
Supper.
Exactly. This is the Last Supper. And a few times on the exam, they have shown 2 or 3 Last Suppers and asked you to compare them. And in that case, even usually on those compare and contrast, a lot of times they'll tell you what it is, but your skill will be in identifying the compare and contrast. Okay, this is Antoine Watteau. And so what did we discuss? What was his Rococo? Good. And so Rococo is frou-frou, it's playfulness. L'indifférent means like this is a guy who's indifferent. He doesn't, he's not doing anything in particular. Maybe he's a duke or a prince and he's just hanging out, not doing anything. That would never happen in a Renaissance painting. That would never happen in the classicist painting. But Rococo, absolutely. Can anybody tell me anything about this?
Is it a mosaic?
Yes, it's a mosaic. And how do you know it's a mosaic?
You kind of like see, especially on the yellow,
Mm-hmm.
like the difference.
Good. So especially in some areas like the kind of goldish colored, you can see the fragments that make something a mosaic. What else do you, let's say you're like, I can't remember, what time or era this of. What is significant, just in looking at this, what is significant about this piece?
Is that a nimbus too?
Yes.
So that's like maybe it could be, we said the nimbus was like Renaissance.
Yeah, well, the nimbus could be Renaissance. Actually, in this case, because it's kind of all the way around and it's not gold, it's just kind of the outline of it. That in general means it's not Renaissance. We'll look at what it is in a little bit. But if only one person has a nimbus, that's always Jesus. When in doubt, Jesus has a nimbus. What else do you just notice about this in general? Good. Priests on the right. How do you know that? Good. Very good. And I'll emphasize to you that may sound obvious, but it's not. And you have to remember that you have to identify all those things, even though, especially at a Catholic school, we might be like, duh, that one's holding a Bible, that one's holding incense, what else could it be? But in terms of art history, you need to identify that and tell us what that means. The other thing that I think is significant is it's essentially all the same face with slightly different hairdos. Okay. The other thing that's of interest is that essentially everybody's floating. That they didn't figure out how to show these feet are flat on the ground. This person is standing behind this person and this one not. So it is pre-Renaissance. Okay, because there was just not a lot of sophistication, even in the drapery of the clothing. It's all just kind of straight down, nothing fancy. I'll come back and I'll show you the details about some of these after we've.
Will there be more of this kind of art
Which this kind?
on the test? Like, not like this specific mosaic type,
Right.
but
Really the emphasis is almost always, I would say, on Renaissance and modern art. And I've been surprised at the amount of modern art, but I feel like I would say a good 20% of the exam involves modern art, even if it's like a comparison between something that's more classical and modern. So I would really emphasize, going over Renaissance stuff and also some of the modern stuff that's up in that last unit that we put up. I'm gonna I'm going to move through a few of these quickly because I'm going to come back to them and show you all the details about them. What event is this depicting? Good. The angel of Gabriel coming to Mary, which is always referred to as the Annunciation. Okay,
Is
so
that like a,
triptych.
it's called a triptych?
It's called a triptych when it's in 3 sections
Yes.
like that.
It almost looks like it's like made with like figures instead of like drawn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The emphasis on shadow, and you can see the foreshortening is kind of extreme. Like it's like that bench is gonna like tip over onto us because it's so extreme. But yet, sorry, Ryan and Saliba, you're just not gonna see this, but like it's like her knee is just gonna like poke right through. It's kind of the overemphasis, but that's supposed to be a star there. Like this, this is kind of wacko. Like this table is almost flat, perpendicular this way. It's clear that the shadowing is a little off. But the shadow on this pot in the back, I think, is just amazing. It really looks like it's in a little alcove there. So again, the Annunciation. This is Hugo van der Goes from Flanders. To me, these faces from the Flemish, Van der Goes and Van Hayden, and there's one other I can't remember right now. They're very similar. Like they're super pale. They have really huge foreheads. Van Weyden as well. We'll look at some more.
What style is that?
This I'm gonna have to wait. I don't want to guess and mess you up, so I'm gonna wait. I have another slide that has all the details on it, so I don't want to mess you up. So I'm gonna wait till I get to that. This, I think it's important to know that. What do we call that? What do we call the main in any temple plan? What is the main room? Like the main space? What is that called? It's the nave. So whether it's like a Christian church or Islamic temple, a nave is the main room. And I say that not necessarily because they're going to say what's the main room in a temple and you're going to say nave, but because they might refer to that, say, in saying, the nave in this cathedral is blah, blah, tell us about it. And you'll be like, what? The roof? What are they talking about? So that's in terms of the temple plan. Okay, who can tell me something about this? Egyptian. How did you know it was Egyptian, Michael?
The thing where on his head looks like what a pharaoh would wear.
Good. The whipper on his head looks like what a pharaoh would wear. So that headpiece. What makes this unconventional in terms of Egyptian? This is from a very specific time period when there was some realism involved.
Well, usually in like Egypt, they're very like it wasn't real at all. Like
Mm-hmm.
the arms would be like longer than the legs, and like it'd be very like straight and like
Mm-hmm.
realistically would not be like it was like wasn't it 2D? There was like no 3D.
Exactly. Generally in Egyptian art, it's very artificial. Everything is two-dimensional. Every figure looked the same. You would know it was a pharaoh because there was a beard stuck on the chin of it. But other than that, the figure itself would be exactly like the slave. This little pot-bellied King Tut is from the Amarna style. And the Amarna style was a very brief period that produced a lot of art, and King Tutankhamun was part of it, as well as some other pharaohs. But the main piece that came out of it was this, which is just a stele, but also the bust of Queen Nefertiti. Which is very famous, and I actually don't think I have here, but if you saw it, you'd know it. All right, this is Madonna and Child. There are several. Again, just the kind of ugly baby, like not really baby-like, but I know, they really kind of freak me out if I look too long at it. Okay, so what is this? The Parthenon. Thank you. Right at the Acropolis, at the top of the mountain. And what kind of columns are these?
Doric.
Good, Doric. Totally dorky plain. Doric, Doric, Doric.
So that's the column.
That describes the whole, you would say it's a Doric column. Part of the reason it would be Doric is because there's no stylobate, which you don't need to know, on the bottom. And also because the grooves are wider than they would be in any other kind. But the main thing that you can see in any picture is the capital. So it's a Doric column. The whole thing is a Doric column. That's a tapestry. I'll talk about that when we get the whole thing. Who's this lovely, voluptuous woman? Good, the Lauselle Venus. How big is this figure?
It's like super small, right?
Good, it's just a few inches tall. And why is it just a few inches tall? Who created the Lauselle Venus? This lovely, well-endowed figure. Right. I mean, Paleolithic, but they were hunter-gatherers, which meant they were always moving. Okay, and since they were always moving, their art had to be portable. Okay, so that's why she's little. Why would hunter-gatherers be interested in fertility? Good. It meant they could produce more people, they would survive. But fertility, in terms of human life, but what's the other sense of fertility that eventually?
Like growth of like crops.
Good. But also eventually when they got to move from hunter-gatherers to less nomadic people to more stationary people, they would also have fertility figures, but that would have more to do with fertile soil, fertile crops, things like that. What?
Is that in the museum and somewhere?
The Louvre?
No, not the Louvre. It's in a museum, I know, but
I think this is Versailles.
yeah, I've been here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's
Something
pretty
like that.
it's pretty distinctive. Like it's super fancy, and if it's super fancy and ornate, what time period is it from? Probably Rococo, right. This is the Sutton Hoo purse.
Handle?
Excuse me?
Oh, wait.
Good first handle, I think.
Yes, it's a purse handle. So it's the top of a purse. Jessica's choking. Oh my God. I'm just gonna keep moving. Okay. What is this? Who can tell me what this is? This is the I'm not gonna laugh. This is the standard of living. Standard of UR, which is a standard just means that there are kind of rows of things. On the standard of the blue stone is called what? It's prevalent in Egyptian art as well, the blue stone? No. This is disintegrating quickly. Lapis lazuli. Lapis lazuli. So everything in Near Eastern and Egyptian art, almost everything is gold or stone, but then there's blue, and that's lapis lazuli. Standard of has war on one side, peace on the other. Anybody tell me about this? What this is?
Oh, we did something about. It's like one of them's an angel, or no?
Yeah, one of them is John the Baptist. One of them is Jesus. And there's an angel, and there's Mary.
Oh, it's like because they're cousins.
Yes, exactly. There are lots of images, especially in the Renaissance, of Mary with John the Baptist, with Jesus. Does anybody know who did this? This is a pretty famous painting that it might be worth knowing. This is the Madonna of the Rocks, and it's by Leonardo da Vinci. Here we see a lot of use of chiaroscuro. Can anybody tell me what chiaroscuro is?
Isn't it like isn't it like white and black? Or
Yeah,
like
it's
dark and
yes,
light?
the use of light and dark to create shadows and emphasis and things like that. Can anybody tell me what this is?
Dome of the Rock.
Good. Good. The Dome of the Rock.
I'm sure he's searching this. I'm sure. How do you know this, Alina? Well, he wants a 5 on this.
Yeah. The yeah, and one of your peers, Ryan, Carlo, who is at Sarah, he's been working his way through the practice multiple choice tests and, doing pretty well on them. So there are lots of other things you can do than watch my slideshows.
Schmoop is really good.
What is?
Yeah,
A
Van
schmoop?
Schmoop.
I know, I thought
I
that's
did
good
that for a
too.
couple hours.
Yeah.
I think Schmoop's harder also.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Dome of the Rock. I don't think I have a picture of inside, but
Oh, those are the Lascaux caves from the beginning of the year when we had to write the essay.
exactly. The caves of Lascaux and Montignac. In any cave painting, if there's a picture of an animal on the wall, what could that mean?
No.
Yeah, it could be nomadic. They're going out for a hunt and they want to capture the spirit just like they want to capture the animal. What if there's a handprint on the wall? What would that mean? A handprint. It's like tagging. That's the artist's signature, is the handprint. What's this big giant phallic symbol?
Code of Hammurabi.
Good. The Code of Hammurabi. The basic Code of Hammurabi is an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And that's all in cuneiform underneath the figures. It's a giant phallic symbol to show power, and it's Babylonian. Oh, here's our pal, Foreshortened Christ by Mantegna. And again, Mantegna is the master of foreshortening, of making the angles such that, yeah, he's foreshortened. Mantegna, Mantegna. And I also think, I just think this is amazing. He looks really dead. Like just the way his hands are sort of awkwardly laid there. If you were live, that wouldn't happen. There's kind of a gray cast to his face. I always just think this is really masterful. Anybody know this artist? This is Vigie Lebrun, who did a lot of self-portraits, and she was during the kind of Baroque era. She was someone who did a lot of self-portraits and was just a major female artist of the time. We've seen this before. What's this? Tell me something about it. What era is this from? Good. Neoclassicism. Classicism. How'd you know?
Because it's like the opposite of Rococo, and it's the Greek and Roman stuff gives you a hint.
Good. Yeah, good. All right. Does anybody? I'm gonna wait and get to the. What's this one?
The 4th of March. 4th of March.
Uh-huh. Right. I'm always like, it's not Velasquez, it's Goya. It's not Goya, it's like one or the other all the time. Yeah, and I think I just think those are cool. Okay, so here we're going through some of them. This is a nude woman, Venus of Willendorf, Hall of the Bulls in Lascaux, Standard of stele. Oh, right, stele. So a stele is any slab of stone. Akhenaten and Nefertiti and their daughters. I guess there are three. I can never see the third daughter, but there's that one up on her shoulder. Parthenon from the Acropolis of Athens. The Pantheon in Rome. The Pantheon, at the top of that dome that's over the main part of the building, there's a hole in the ceiling right in the center. What is that hole called? It's like it's a Latin word for eye, oculus. So it's the oculus. Rain comes down there. I went when I was last in Italy with the chorus. It actually rained when we were in there, and the rain comes right down through the oculus, and there you can't tell if you're standing in it, but the center of the floor is raised just slightly, and there are channels so that the water just runs down to the edge and out. It's kind of amazing, I must say. All right. What else? Yeah, this is Santa Apollinare in Ravenna. I just, there's so many sacred spaces like this. I haven't seen that. They have not recently asked anybody to name something like this, but they might ask you, like, how are they able to have 3 tiers or levels here? And you would talk about the weight bearing nature of those arches, that the weight is distributed over those arches at every level. And that alleviates the weight of the ceiling, which is coffered, but I don't think that has much to do with the weight. Coffered just means there are those inlaid squares all over the ceiling. This is Justinian and his attendants in San Vitale in Ravenna. Again, it's the really sort of mundane faces all in a row. Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, Sutton Hoo purse cover, Lindisfarne Gospels, the Bio Tapestry. I mean, you can tell that's a tapestry because it's all kind of wobbly there. It's a technical term. Royal Portal of Chartres Cathedral. Same idea of there being sort of a pediment, and that a lot of the art goes in there. It's Gothic. Yeah. This is Duccio Maesta, Siena Cathedral. You'll see lots, you'll probably see lots of Madonna and Child. There's a famous Cimabue one that I think we have a screencast on. It might be worth looking at again. This is the Marode altarpiece. That's it. From the 1400s. Again, this is from Flanders. It's Flemish. Andrea Mantegna, Foreshortened Christ. Leonardo da Vinci, Madonna of the Rocks. Albrecht Dürer, Last Supper. Palace of Versailles. Antoine Watteau, Don Different. Elizabeth Louise Vigie Lebrun. Birth of Herati. Oh, Jean Auguste Dominique Ingres, Grand Odalisque. That one I'm not that familiar with. And here's Goya, the 3rd of May. 3rd, 4th. May the 4th be with you. That's what we're thinking about. All right. Is there anything in particular you'd like to go over? I mean, like, I have this stuff. This is this is from Art Authority. I find that it tends to have kind of obscure pieces of art, so I don't want to like flip you out and have you see.
Do you have any like predictions on what you think is gonna be the like favorite songs or anything? I just have like question on test taking strategy.
Yeah.
Like, what would we do if we don't know?
If you absolutely have no clue on like a multiple choice, skip it. Like,
do we guess?
If you can eliminate at least one of the options, guess.
Okay.
But the main thing I would say about that is to, if you have no clue, skip it and keep going and come back to it. And even if, because a lot of times you get a lot of information later, some other question will give away some information that's useful. But if, like, even after going back through, you're like, still, I've got no clue, I don't know what they're talking about, skip it entirely. But if you can eliminate even one, it's worth it to try. Yeah, let's see.
What's the format of
The format is, I'm trying to think of I don't know the exact, I don't know the exact number of multiple choice, but there are, here, well, let's look it up just to make sure.
If
Because
you go on Schmoop, it has like predicted amount of questions for like what type of subject, and it has like all the information on the free responses and like how many multiple choice.
okay, well, where do you think I put my Schmoop link? Did I put it there? AP Art History. Where did I put Schmoop on this? Schmoop, schmoop, schmoop. Did I put my Schmoop here?
Maybe if you just go to the updates.
How long will the test be?
I think the test, it's supposed to last 2.5 hours, but I have to say the last couple of years they've been in there for 3.5 hours, and I don't know why. Because I think they're supposed to knock them off. But where do you want me to go?
Oh, go to updates under materials. Like, 'cause I think
Oh.
you made posted.
I'm gonna like that. Okay, let's see. Schmoop. I didn't put it there. Okay. I don't know why I didn't. Well, anyway, so go to Schmoop. It'll tell you exactly what it is, but here I can go to the AP Art History homepage. Teacher's Guide, Course Perspective, Exam Information, Printed Color Images. Okay, let me see. Okay, so 5 sets of multiple choice questions based on an image or pair of images presented as a full color printed insert. Oh, let me say something about that, because oftentimes they have 2 images, and so you're going to know one and not the other, and that's fine, that's good. Like, don't worry if you don't know both. It's kind of set up so that one should be a little bit familiar and the other would be something new, and you have to compare it. 20 minutes to answer the 5 sets of questions, 4 minutes per set. Total number varies. Points are not deducted for incorrect answers. No points are awarded for unanswered questions. Section 2, the essay, 8 free response questions. 1 free response question requires students to incorporate a work of art from beyond the European tradition. That's where that last assignment about the major screencasts, that's where that you'll draw from that probably. Although you could also use like Egypt or something like that. Essay questions may require to compare 2 works of art. Here, I mean, you can look at all of this, information, sample responses. I think these are good to look at because they really have someone analyze what you were supposed to do. Please, please, please answer the question. A lot of times I think these questions are so convoluted that people forget to actually make sure that they've answered what the person is asking for. So select and fully identify 2 specific works made from materials that have cultural significance. At least one of your choices must come from beyond the European tradition. For each work, analyze how the use of particular materials shapes the meaning, religious, social, and of the work with its cultural context. Okay, so you would need to select 2 fully identify, which means identify the name of the piece, who created it, and what era or time period it's from. If you know the piece you want to choose and you're stumped, you can't remember who made it, but you know everything else about it, still go for it. Okay, if you remember, if there's some aspect of it you don't remember, but you know the rest of it thoroughly, go for it. They'll only take a few points off or something like that. Cultures. Okay. So here, again, it tells you what you need to do and analyze how the materials shape the meaning. That's hard, and I think this is good advice. Materials should not be confused with techniques or processes. Okay, and these are traps, that kids have fallen into. The prehistoric examples, like you want to use Venus of Willendorf, that's not considered beyond the European tradition. It's the stuff we just did: the African art, the Latin American art, the South Asian art. Those things are what you should be using. Pardon me?
We could use one of those, like from the ancient art, to classify under something of European tradition, and then something of one of the major screencasts classify as not European.
You can only use the ancient art, like the Paleolithic and stuff like that. You can only use it if it specifically says so. That might be on the multiple choice, but in general, stay away from the Paleolithic, Neolithic art for the essay questions unless specifically they say so. Beyond the European tradition means African, Chinese, Asian, Latin American. That's what they mean. A little more contemporary than the more ancient art.
For those, like, can you say something like Machu Picchu, like without?
Yes, I mean, the thing is that there will be specific times a work can be a piece of art, it can be architecture, either one. So there will be some questions that are very specific about architecture, but you can treat architecture or a building as a work. Now, if something is set, identify two pieces of art, that's going to be art. But a work can be either one. Michael.
Can we, like, so in this question, can we use two pieces of art that aren't from European tradition?
No, one of them.
One has to be
Yes.
from it? Okay.
Yeah. There has never been a question that I've seen that have asked you to compare two things from art not from Europe. It's always to compare it with one. So again, that's why I lumped all those into one big screencast, because you only really need to know really, really well, probably one or two of them, for use as a comparison. Other general questions, I would, you can review however you want. Sometimes it's just kind of soothing to listen to those Smart History Academy things. A lot of times they'll kind of reinforce some stuff that you already know, and I just think it's like pleasant to listen to two smart people talk about it. But you might want to go through some of the stuff on the AP Art History, AP Central College Board website. It's kind of what you want to do. Like this kind of stuff here, that kind of gets like too serious for me and it freaks me out. So like I would look at that stuff tonight, and then tomorrow do the more like light stuff, like listening to the podcast, going over maybe some of your short answers, going over some of the blog posts from people. I will try and pick through tonight some of the better screencasts that some of you have done and load those up in the review materials so that you can see what some people did, especially about, I haven't gone through all of the major screencasts, but if there's some good ones, I'll try and put those there too. So I'll load stuff there for you to look at. Other general questions? Yeah.
So for the like short answer
Can we go to
ones,
one of our classes, but not all of them, or do we have to?
Just a second. Let me answer Jessica's question, then I'll come back to you, Saliba. Yes, Jessica.
So for some of the short answer ones, I saw like on Shmoop we would ask like identify the artist and then like talk about the aesthetics and like time periods. So, like, what do you do if you just don't know the artist?
You keep going. You answer everything
Okay.
else. Yeah. I mean, for those things like the short answers and the essay, you need to kind of brain dump like everything you know about. You need to convince the person reading it, because it's a person reading it, that you really know this very well. It's just, that synapse didn't fire. Like, it's just that one piece you don't know. So, put everything you know about it, even if it seems obvious, but don't worry if there's one little tidbit of it you don't know. One of the students who did well and passed the exam, this is now a few years ago, he was, some people who take this are just history students and like they're in it for the history. And he could not identify hardly any of the like artistic techniques. He was just like, bleh, it's Greek to him. But he just pounded on all the history stuff that he knew. And so, he got points taken off here and there for not knowing the artistic techniques. But, the information was so sort of overriding that he knew the stuff, that he got through all the essays and all the short answers and all that. So. Saliba, you had a question.
For our classes tomorrow, do we go to them or how do we do?
I think you have to have a note from your parents to indicate that you are excused from those classes. But you have to turn that in the morning to the attendance
already turned
office
that
for
in.
you to be excused.
Miss K's are emailed it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Miss Kate,
Something signed.
Yeah.
I can re-email you the form if you didn't get the form, Saliba.
You get excused from work.
Oh no, I already submitted the form. I just didn't know if we have to go to.
Oh yeah, then you're good to go. Then just don't show up. Ditch.
Well,
Okay.
are you going to be here in the morning?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm not going to my first school. So I'm studying that.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Yeah. I'll be in a meeting starting at 9:30, but from 7:30 to 9:30, I'll be in my office. So
Okay, yeah.
with my rock from Sophie, that was her project. I love my potato rock. Okay, so I am going to stop recording this, and I will try and upload it as a massive whooper on YouTube for you to listen to. Feel free and email me if you need anything. And that's that. Good luck. Pray. Bye. Okay, stop recording.